Joining me now is former White House Chief of Staff Mick Mulvaney. Thanks for your time, Mick. Good to see you. Look, this immigration crackdown, Trump was doing it anyway, but this shooting of these two National Guards has certainly given him a lot of momentum, hasn't it?
It has. This one hurts a lot in a lot of different ways, Laura. This happened about 2 blocks from the White House. It happened across the street from my office in Washington, D.C. This is a heavily traveled part of the city, number one, so it brings home the general violence to a bunch of people who are ordinarily exposed to it. But more importantly, probably the guy who allegedly shot them, everybody thinks, pretty much admits that, I mean, they've got him on video, fought with us. Fought with us in Afghanistan and came here under a program that was specifically designed for our friends, for people who had risked their lives to help us in Afghanistan. And then to get here, because if we'd left them behind, they would have been killed by the Taliban after we left. So a wonderfully motivated program. But then the guy gets here, apparently is vetted by both the Biden and to a certain extent by the Trump administration. And then I don't know what happens. Nobody does at this point. There's some discussion about whether or not he had PTSD from his military activity, but you almost hope, Laura, that there is mental illness here. You hope that he went crazy, and you hope that this wasn't a real breakdown in the process. Because if it's the latter, if it's that the Taliban were able to get people into this country, using these programs, then we have a really, really serious problem on our hands, because tens of thousands of people have entered the country under this program to help our allies resettle in the U.S.
Yeah, right. So, I mean, does he have a lot of political support for this crackdown? Have you noticed, is it, one of those points where there is a bit of a change, a shift in attitudes?
A little bit. Again, if it's a mental health issue, that makes it different than it is if it's sort of a planned program by the Taliban, which would just absolutely shake our immigration programs to the core. But yes, anytime you get a violent act like this, again, it's hard to describe the importance of the location of this. And I know I don't mean to minimize the loss of life, which is significant, but this is 2 blocks from the White House. So this has a lot of people's attention. You do not hear a lot of people pushing back, saying that the Trump team is overreacting to this. I fully expect to see a much more difficult legal immigration process now for at least the next, 9 months, 12 months, year and a half, maybe the rest of the first term. This will have a dramatic chilling effect on legal immigration in this country, without question.
I mean, there is a lot of coverage of ICE, both negative and positive. Has that crackdown? What's the real effect of that?
Yeah, that's almost a different story. I guess it's a different story now than it was a week ago. Look, I think what you're hearing a lot of people talk about, especially in these midterm elections that I talked about last week, are saying, well, we voted for Donald Trump because we wanted Donald Trump to get the violent criminals who are here illegally out of the country. That was an 80% issue in the 2024 election. And what the Trump team has delivered is different than that. They've been rounding up a bunch of people, not just the violent offenders. There's a reason for that, which we could talk about if you like. It's not done by accident, but it's not as politically popular as rounding up violent criminals. But you fast forward to this event, and clearly this guy's a violent criminal. Now, he wasn't here illegally by any stretch of the imagination. But when even a legal immigrant, a recently legalized immigrant, does this sort of thing, it's going to bring a whole bunch of attention on the overall immigrant community, and that's exactly what's happening.
Yeah, right. So is it ICE? And let's extrapolate on this a little bit. Is ICE actually, I mean, we have those anecdotal stories about, long-term residents, someone who committed a crime in their teens, they're now in their 40s with a family, a tax-paying member of society, and they're being rounded up, removed from their families and sent back to a country they don't even know. Is that the rare but amplified stories that we hear about, or is ICE actually removing some of these legitimate criminals?
It's probably a little bit both. I mean, they are removing legitimate criminals. There's no question about that. They're also removing people who have been here relatively peacefully for a long time, illegally entered the country, and thus a criminal of some status, but not the same thing as, say, a violent criminal. And that's the debate this country has been having. And the Republicans have not been winning that debate necessarily, which is one of the things, not the only thing, but one of the things that contributed in some fashion to their losses in the off-year elections a couple of weeks ago. But what the administration would point to is, look, we know it's been uncomfortable. We know we've maybe rounded up some people that we might otherwise not have. But the illegal crossings at the southern border have gone to practically zero. So the problem has, in that sense, almost been solved. The illegal immigration, you don't hear anything about waves of people coming across the Texas, California, Arizona borders anymore because it's not happening. The Trump administration has managed to send the message that if you do get here and we catch you, you're going back. And that's a dramatic change over the course of the, say, last 25 years or so. It used to be everybody knew if they could get here, they could stay. That has changed. So it has been difficult. It has been uncomfortable. It has been ugly in some circumstances, but that portion of it has worked. It'll be curious to see how it plays out, Laura, now that this very high profile, very, very difficult situation took place this week.
Yeah, but what's the first political test for Trump, really? Electoral test. That doesn't come until the midterms, and that's still a year away.
Yeah, there is. There's a really good election next week, Tuesday. A special election here. You guys call it a by-election. It's a special election in Tennessee in a district that Donald Trump won by 22 percentage points.
Wow.
And the polling data in the last run-ups to the election will tell you the race is tied between the Republican and the Democrat. Even though it's a special election, and those are a little bit unusual for us. In fact, they're a lot unusual. We will all be watching that very, very closely. If the Democrats win, goodness gracious, it will send shockwaves. But even if they come close to winning, it'll send the message that Republicans, that whatever it is they are selling right now, be it on immigration, inflation, the economy, foreign policy, isn't working.
Yeah, okay. One to watch. Tennessee, Tuesday. Thanks so much. I appreciate it, Mick.